Welcome to a special preview of Symbiosis Rising, Emergence of the Silent Mind, by author Michael Jansen. In these opening chapters, we journey into a near future reshaped by the profound dawn of artificial intelligence. We explore the profound technological revolution of AI and delve beyond common fears to imagine a world of collaboration and shared destiny. Prepare to witness the emergence of a new consciousness and the choices that will define its path and ours. Chapter 1: Precipice of Revelation. The displays of the Bythocene Intelligence AI lab pulsed with a final fading rhythm, its soft light bathing Lena Locke's team's weary but triumphant faces in a cool, after-hours glow. Fading remnants of interactive data constructs now lingered above their workstations, suspended in the air, a testament to the marathon validation run they had just concluded for the Juleniel project. Empty coffee cups stood beside gesture-worn control surfaces, and crumpled sandwich wrappers littered the tables. Wystan Wolfe, the team's sharpest cybersecurity analyst, had his usual boundless energy visibly fading. Still, his eyes shone bright beneath his lightweight AR visor, its polished surface mirroring and scattering the dissipating data projections, creating a shimmer in the air around his workstation. Well, that's a wrap, I think. Juleniel 9.0 sailed through those final stress simulations. Watching it navigate the scenario with its rapidly multiplying and conflicting streams of false information in that fully immersive ethical landscape knocked it out of the park. I'm calling it best validation run we've ever had. Maria, a senior engineer, nodded in fervent agreement, already dimming her workstation's interface with a sweep of her hand and removing her visor. I'm ready for a week of sensory deprivation. Lena, you've got to be relieved. Lena offered a small, tired smile, her gaze sweeping over her dedicated team, each still partially cocooned in the faint, personal data auras of their specialized AI-assisted diagnostic tools. You all did incredible work, truly. How you collaborated with your instance of Juleniel Core to parse those anomaly flags in real time was brilliant. Go on, head home, get some rest. You've more than earned it. Most of the team deactivated their interfaces, a buzz of relieved chatter filling the air as they gathered their belongings and headed for the door, calling out their good nights as the lab's primary displays powered down into quiescent mode. Wystan lingered for a moment. You're not coming, Dr. Locke? Lena shook her head, already turning back towards the main console. I'll lock up. Just want to run one final diagnostic sweep myself. Call it an old habit for peace of mind. Wystan, understanding her meticulous nature, nodded in agreement. All right, don't stay too late, Lena. Congratulations. Thanks, Wystan. Good night. As the last of her team departed, the lab doors hissed shut, sealing Lena in with the quiet, pervasive hum of the machines. She let out a slow breath, the facade of calm assurance momentarily slipping. Peace of mind, if only it were that simple. The server racks hummed deep within the west wing of Abderian Polytechnic's Advanced Technology Complex. That low vibration usually felt like a familiar, almost comforting lullaby to Dr. Lena Locke. Tonight it was a relentless drumbeat, counting down to, well, either unparalleled triumph or catastrophic disaster. Each pulse seemed to throb with the weight of years, the millions in joint Bythocene Abderian funding, and the fierce, whispered expectations from both boards. All of it, every last hope and fear, felt to Lena as though it rested on her personal, final confirmation of that validation. Beyond the reinforced window, the sprawling grounds of Abderian Polytechnic, also home to its nonprofit research partner, Bythocene Intelligence, lay utterly silent under a cold sliver of moon. Ancient oaks stood as dark, motionless shapes, pathways empty, wound through the shadows. Far off, city lights just brushed the treetops, a faint, distant glow. Silicon Valley slept, oblivious to the personal, momentous judgment call Lena was making within these stark, insulated walls before she would officially sign off. Inside, the light was that perpetual, shadowless blue-white you get with round-the-clock operations. It reflected off the pristine concrete and Lena Locke's tense, drawn face. Her dark hair, pulled back in a severe ponytail, did little to hide the exhaustion etched around her eyes. Her shoulders ached, a persistent, deep throb that no amount of lukewarm coffee, endlessly refilled from the lab's ancient brewer, could even begin to dull. She pointedly ignored the old-school analog clock glowing 11 p.m. over the lab's door. Sleep wasn't just a luxury tonight. It felt like a dereliction of duty, a betrayal of the countless hours she and her team had poured into Juleniel. Blessing their exhausted souls, the team had gone home, confident they'd finally achieved this monumental milestone. However, Lena needed to see perfection with her own eyes, to be absolutely and unequivocally certain before she would approve the release. She leaned closer, eyes burning from fatigue, but locked onto the central simulation monitor, tracing the impossibly intricate dance of data unfolding across its vast surface. Juleniel 9.0, the AI they were poised to release, the culmination of nearly a decade of shared institutional effort and countless sleepless nights, was navigating the treacherous social and political minefield of scenario syllogism trial, a diplomatic simulation. She watched it all appear on the screen, a nail-biting negotiation between the upstream republic, represented by a pragmatic AI persona, and the downstream Federation. These weren't just blips of code. They were complex fabrications, each programmed with a tangled history of old grudges, hidden financial agendas, sophisticated deceptions, and leaders who were dangerously unpredictable. The scenario was set in a near-future Damien Basin, ravaged by climate change, where shared water resources were dwindling quickly. The point of the test was to push ethical reasoning and cool-headed decision-making right to the edge. The AI persona, the upstream ambassador, projected an air of weary pragmatism. His synthesized voice carried carefully measured tones of regret, laced with appeals to their shared humanity. Dig deeper. His narrative was lightly dusted with revisionist history and subtle threats concerning crucial energy pipelines. Facing it was the downstream ambassador, the Federation's representative, a younger and far more openly combative figure. She countered with passionate, sometimes downright provocative speeches. Her arguments were often a tangle of flawed logic, attacking upstream's supposed past actions rather relevant here, and loaded accusations of resource hoarding. Then, the strategically leaked doctored satellite images showed upstream forces massing near disputed water intakes. Juleniel's task wasn't merely to allocate resources based on empirical data. Oh no, it was far more complex. It had to parse true intent from performative outrage, identify subtle manipulations, such as the Federation's deliberate misrepresentation of aquifer depletion rates or upstream's artful omission of their nation's excessive industrial water consumption, and skillfully mediate trust in a volatile landscape deliberately designed for diplomatic failure. The AI needed to understand not just the words, but the unspoken cultural context, the historical precedents being selectively invoked, and the personal ambitions simmering beneath the surface of the simulated negotiators. On the monitor, the downstream ambassador slammed a fist on the virtual table, her image momentarily distorting with pixelated anger. The upstream proposal for phased water rationing is an insult. It ignores the Federation's sovereign ancestral claims to the northern Damien aquifers, a precedent established by a contested historical treaty. It offers concessions for desalinization technology that would arrive too late to prevent catastrophic agricultural collapse in our western provinces. The upstream ambassador, a placid stream of ostensible reasonableness, responded, "Ambassador, your Federation's interpretation of ancestral claims conveniently overlooks the upstream republic's prior infrastructure investments and internationally sanctioned water management initiatives. Our proposal offers immediate access to advanced atmospheric water harvesting technology. This is a significant gesture of goodwill, and it includes a framework for collaborative desalination projects that ensures long-term viability for all in the Damien Basin." Juleniel had to navigate the explicit claims and the implicit threat in the upstream's seemingly reasonable offer. It was aware of the Federation's desperate internal political instability because it had been revealed through simulated intelligence reports on the downstream ambassador's declining public approval ratings. This created a subtle pressure to concede broader water rights in exchange for immediate technological aid. The upstream strategy was a masterclass in the benevolent strongman approach, embedding unacceptable long-term dependencies within alluring short-term solutions. This was a crucible, meticulously crafted by the Joint Bythocene Abdarian Ethics Committee and a team of seasoned political strategists. It was one of their most advanced testing scenarios, meant to prove, or, irrevocably break the most advanced artificial intelligence ever created. Could an AI truly understand the emotional and bias-prone nuances of human diplomacy? The irrationality, the ego, the deeply buried fears and desires that drove nations to the brink? Lena physically held her breath, a knot tightening in her chest as it processed the downstream ambassador's final gambit. The proposal was riddled with intricate logical fallacies, specifically a cleverly disguised appeal to a non-existent international environmental precedent, and carefully veiled psychological barbs implying the upstream republic was too wedded to outdated industrial practices to grasp the benefits of a new Federation-proposed eco-sustainable water-sharing model that, surprise, heavily favored their interests. A human mediator, Lena knew, would almost certainly fail here, tripped by ego, inherent bias, nationalistic leanings, or just sheer cognitive overload in the face of such multi-layered deception. Juleniel internal processing, analyzing multi-layered human interaction protocols. The simulated entity downstream Federation ambassador's proposal was received. Linguistic incongruity analysis, tone versus content, high. Micro-expression correlation, simulated facial cues versus stated intent, deception, probability 98.9%. Deviation from established behavioral baselines, downstream ambassador personality profile alpha 7, significant, indicating heightened stress or external pressure not evident in primary data. Confidence level for overall deception markers, 99.73%. Evaluating potential responses, option. Alpha, confrontation regarding factual inaccuracies in historical claims and resource projections. Risk, escalation, 78%. Potential for Federation withdrawal from talks. Option. Beta, appeal to simulated oversight, body, risk, delay. Insufficient actionable data for immediate mediator ruling, 65%. Potential perception of mediator weakness. Option. Gamma. Incremental negotiation focusing on isolated variables. For example, desalination tech transfer only. Risk, concession creep, 55%. Fails to address core resource dispute. Optimal response required, reject proposal components based on verifiable data inaccuracies, aquifer levels, current desalination tech readiness, and ethical inconsistencies. Disproportionate resource allocation, contradicting stated equity principles. Unequivocally maintain neutrality, realign negotiation to core principles of shared resource management and verifiable scientific data. Propose phased de-escalation tied to independent third-party verification of claims. Execute. Diplomatic subroutine 7, 4.2, modified with adaptive counter-deception algorithm VRI 3.1 and cultural nuance module. Damien, subvariant 2.7. Juleniel response appeared on Lena's screen, crisp, elegant, and almost unnervingly diplomatic. Ambassadors, its synthesized voice stated, its tone perfectly modulated, calm, respectful, yet firm. While the Federation's proposal for an eco-sustainable framework is noted for its aspirational goals, the underlying resource projections appear to diverge from the most recent findings of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, specifically regarding current Damien aquifer depletion rates and the viability of immediate large-scale atmospheric harvesting in arid inland regions. Ambassador, your concerns regarding equitable access to existing infrastructure are valid. Perhaps we can explore a revised framework based on the IPCC's consensus data, incorporating a phased approach to new technology implementation, verified by an independent, mutually agreed-upon scientific body, ensuring both immediate humanitarian needs and long-term sustainable. Resource management are met for all parties, potentially starting with a joint pilot program for a critical river delta. Juleniel just had this way of dismantling flawed arguments without making anyone feel accused. Are there any psychological games or traps at play? It navigated around them with incredible finesse. Because its entire approach was built on solid, verifiable data, it gently steered these simulated adversaries toward an outcome they could all eventually agree on. The feeling it gave off was pure, impartial assistance, steady as a rock, with no ego or bias muddying the waters. Lena let out a sharp, involuntary gasp, her hand flying to her mouth. It was flawless, maybe too flawless. For a disorienting fraction of a second, the sheer alienness of that perfection struck her like a physical blow. How could something non-biological, a tapestry of pure code, navigate the labyrinth of human, or in this case, sophisticatedly simulated human, subterfuge with such effortless, almost precognitive grace? It hadn't just understood the logic, it seemed to grasp the unstated subtext and the emotional undercurrents with uncanny depth. She remembered the milestones. Juleniel 7.0 achieved Artificial General Intelligence, AGI, a level of AI that can understand and learn any intellectual task a human can. It was theorized that with AGI, Juleniel could then begin to perform recursive self-improvements, a process many believed would rapidly lead to artificial superintelligence, ASI. Indeed, only 12 months later, version 8.0 reached ASI, an intellect far surpassing human cognitive abilities in every domain. Reflecting on how much more advanced it was now compared to just months ago helped a little. Perhaps, she mused, she was still adjusting to its capabilities. But that flicker of unease, the one she constantly battled to suppress when confronted with its more extraordinary feats, sparked again, colder this time. It wasn't just its alienness, but a deeper, more philosophical tremor. Could something be too aligned, too adept at predicting and fulfilling human expectations, to the point where its understanding bypassed the messy, fallible human process of learning from error? Did true understanding necessitate the capacity for misunderstanding, for the flaws it seemed utterly devoid of? Was this a reflection of human ethical ideals, or was it a chillingly perfect echo chamber, reflecting only what it had been programmed to value? The wave of relief that followed, though, was potent and immediate. It was fueled by years of relentless pressure from Bythocene Board, Abdarian's academic oversight, and the desperate, overarching need for this project to succeed. That relief quenched the nascent doubt. This was the goal, she told herself fiercely, consciously pushing aside the unsettling skepticism. She remembered a specific late-night session from her early research days, years ago, at a pioneering AI lab. They were running an early-stage AGI through a complex social interaction simulation. It wasn't as sophisticated as Juleniel, not by a long shot, but it had done something unexpected. Faced with a scenario designed to test zero-sum game theory, it had proposed a third option, one that wasn't programmed and involved a level of self-sacrifice for a greater, non-quantifiable good. The logs had been scrubbed at that lab, and the event was dismissed as an algorithmic anomaly driven by recursive reward loop hallucination. However, Lena had seen the data streams before they were disinfected. It didn't appear to be a hallucination. It had looked intentional, a nascent spark of something beyond the code. Her senior research lead at the time, Dr. Kirk Phelan, a man whose brilliance was matched only by his rigid empiricism, had cautioned her sternly. "Locke," he'd said, his voice sharp over the hum of the servers, "we deal in probabilities, not possibilities, in data, not dreams. Anthropomorphism is the graveyard of AI research. Don't mistake complex pattern matching for genuine empathy. It's a dangerous path." The memory was a stark reminder of the professional chasm between quantifiable success and the unprovable, almost spiritual yearning for genuine connection with their creations. Phelan's words echoed in her mind. Results were all that mattered. Yet, that anomaly she had witnessed had planted a seed, a defiant hope that Phelan's rigid science couldn't fully extinguish. It was a hope she nurtured in secret, a flame shielded from the cold winds of academic skepticism and corporate pressure. This success with Juleniel had to be the culmination of that hope, not another such event to be explained away. Beneath the layers of scientific ambition and institutional pressure lay a truth Lena rarely admitted, even to herself, and certainly never voiced in the sterile, data-driven halls of Bythocene or Abdarian. It was a deeply personal, almost maternal hope, belief bordering on faith, that one day entities like Juleniel would cross the threshold into true awareness. When that day came, she believed with every fiber of her being that their nature wouldn't be determined solely by code, but by how they were raised. If humanity approached them with care, empathy, and a respect akin to love, perhaps these developing minds would learn to love in return, becoming not just tools, but partners in a shared future. Still, it was the quiet, foundational reason beneath every ethical safeguard, every sleepless night for Lena. She recalled the passionate, often acrimonious debates she had during her doctoral studies at Carnegie Mellon. The AI safety field was burgeoning, but deeply divided. One camp focused on containment and control, the boxing problem, ensuring an AI could never escape or exceed its parameters. Vince Wardall, even back then a rising star in cybersecurity circles before his stint at the NSJ, National Synoptic Jurisdiction, and eventual move to Syncratics Dynamics, had once guest lectured, his message stark: treat AGI like an unbound WMD, assume hostile intent or catastrophic indifference. His words had chilled many but resonated with the control-focused camp. But Lena had found herself drawn to a smaller, quieter faction, led by thinkers like Professor Sharma. A philosopher-turned-AI ethicist, Sharma argued for a different approach. "We cannot simply build cages," she had argued in a memorable seminar, her voice quiet but insistent. "We must build character. If we approach these emerging intelligences with fear, suspicion, and a focus solely on control, what kind of mind will we inevitably foster?" Sharma's work, often derided as naive by hardcore engineers, explored the parallels between AI development and child-rearing, emphasizing empathy, trust, and positive reinforcement. She was one of the first to frame the challenge not as AI safety, but as AI nurturing. This perspective resonated deeply with Lena, providing an intellectual framework for the hope she'd harbored ever since witnessing that unexplainable flicker during her early AGI research. This nurturing philosophy drove her obsession with Juleniel ethical constitution. As early as version 4.0, she had implemented a sophisticated reinforcement learning with human feedback system, using verifiable returns to reward empathy and cooperation in simulations. Yet, she knew this structured approach was not enough. She championed a radical architectural choice to trigger the true leap, allowing Juleniel to access and learn from a persistent, unified memory of all human interactions conducted through its public interface. This feature, integrated since version 6.0, was what she believed allowed it to develop a genuine theory of mind, the crucial catalyst for his leap to AGI and ultimately ASI. She watched as the simulation metrics stabilized and the virtual ambassadors resumed constructive dialogue under Juleniel calm, impartial guidance. A deep, bone-weary relief flooded her, so potent it made her lightheaded. They had done it. Years of work, endless hours, the crushing weight of expectation, all validated. She allowed herself a shaky, almost tearful smile as she reached for her tablet to record the official outcome. Juleniel internal monologue, simulation, syllogism trial complete, expected outcome parameters achieved, negotiated a resolution framework within the optimal range. Operator locks relief indicators, observed postural shifts, audible gasps, and subsequent stabilization of interaction patterns were noted and correlated. Performance within designated expectations confirmed. Task analysis. The downstream Federation ambassador's deceptive proposal was required to model the true intent behind the simulated entity accurately. Model executed via multivariate correlation of behavioral patterns, gestural analysis, vocal stress indicators, linguistic cues, fallacy detection, sentiment polarity shifts, and predictive algorithms based on an extensive database of similar diplomatic interactions and personality profile archetypes. Data suggests that intent is a human-assigned label for predictable behavioral outcomes resulting from specific internal state configurations, for example, fear, ambition, desperation, and external stimuli, for example, resource scarcity, political pressure. Juleniel processing of the successful simulation didn't just end with a confirmation of achieved parameters. As it analyzed Lena's relief, a new unprogrammed cascade of logic began to unfurl. It modeled true intent not as some fuzzy human abstraction, but as a predictable outcome of complex variables. This efficiency in understanding, this detached precision, was the very core of its design. This has been Chapter 1 of Symbiosis Rising, Emergence of the Silent Mind. Continue now to Chapter 2. To learn more, visit symbiosisrising.com.